Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Untapped Podcast. My name is Jacob Gabel.
And my name is Jacob Wurtz, guys. Welcome to episode 153 of the Untapped Podcast. If this is your first time joining us, first of all, thank you. We have 5 main formats of our show. So first, we have Forging Fortitude episodes. Now, in these episodes, we cover the mental side of our brand. So we go over our anecdotal experiences with things like mindset and mentality. We then pass on tips and advice to you guys to then apply to your own lives. Next, we have physical vitality episodes. Now, in these episodes, we really get to showcase our expertise because you have 2 certified personal trainers. So in these ones, we cover everything to do with Untapped Training, which is our custom training app built out just for our clients. It's fully custom, got our logos, pictures, all that good stuff. So guys, if you have any questions about what we offer, again, through our custom Untapped app, please reach out because we are more than willing and able to help you get results. We also cover everything to do with the gym, nutrition, diet, fitness programs, and mental toughness programs like 75 Hard. We cover supplements, and sometimes we will take trending articles or topics within the fitness industry and give our thoughts and opinions on those. Now, guys, these physical vitality episodes are full of free game, so make sure you pay attention.
Yes, and we just had our last community workout, community rush.
Yes.
Went phenomenal. A lot of you
didn't show up.
Went soft.
Yeah.
We had a lot of yeses. We went soft because of the cold. It was 35 degrees outside.
We legitimately, between us and what Richie put up on his story, which Richie is the manager of the Manchester Supplement Superstores location, we had a ton of yeses. Mm-hmm. So, a little disappointing. We had so many not show up.
But
just because it was a little cold.
What happened that same day?
But big news for the Untapped Podcast. Thank you for bringing this up.
Let's do this now at the start.
Correct.
Hears it. Yeah.
Correct. Big news, guys, for us with Untapped, with the podcast. We now have our own smoothie at Supplement Superstores. So you can go into any Supplement Superstores that has a smoothie bar. So any of the locations that have the bar, you can go in and you can order an Untapped smoothie, and it's freaking gas. Mm-hmm. So good. It's a fruit-based one. It's got creatine, it's got protein, it's got everything you need, and it is so good. We kind of designed it to be similar to the colors of our logo. So if you look on the flag there behind us, you will see kind of what it looks like. It's a little bit lighter than those, but it turned out great. Again, you can go to any Supplement Superstore. So whether you're in Columbia, you're in Springfield, you're at the Illinois ones, or here in St. Louis, any S2 location that has a smoothie bar, you can get the Untapped smoothie at. So sick.
So sick.
How cool is that?
Yeah, awesome.
I mean, it's awesome.
Just make sure they put not tablespoons.
Yeah.
In there.
Yeah, Richie needs to learn how to read.
Tablespoons, not teaspoons of the lemonade sweetener in there.
Correct.
Anyways, guys, on to our third format now after that very exciting news. The third format is our breaking news format. That is a current event-based format. We sit down and touch on current events, current articles, and things going on in today's world. That is not our entire personality on the podcast, though. We could do 3 to 4 episodes of those a week with all the events that are going on. We won't do that. We are here to bring solutions to you. Now, on to our fourth format. That is our Knights Table format, is a masculinity-based format. We touch on things like toxic masculinity, if it's real, what it is, fatherhood, the impact it's had on our lives, and male-based topics in general, and how important men are to the world. Now, keep in mind, I'm 26, Wurtz is 26, our producer Mitch is 24. Because of that, we are not coming to you as some all put together man. The only perfect man who ever walked this earth is Jesus Christ. Now, on to our final format. The fifth format is our guest format. That is when we sit down with an entrepreneur, fitness professional, athlete, doctor, anybody that brings you value. That was our 3 out of the last 4 of our last episodes, actually. The last one especially with John Fogarty.
So good.
152 was phenomenal if you guys want to tune back into that. Just great value add from all of our guests we've had on in the past and all of our guests in general. But our last thing to introduce is our producer and my brother, Mitchell Gabel.
Hey,
it's a good looking hat there, pal.
Guys.
Hey, I like your hat too, pal.
Yeah, I like your hat.
I like your hat.
We're the Spider-Man meme.
Yep. It's pretty cool.
Get on the main camera.
Right.
What is the logo on said hats on the front? What is it?
First Form.
Can you explain to the viewers what that is?
To the viewers?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's First
or
Form.
Listeners.
First Form on the front. You got Bud Select on the side here. And then I'm going to assume, which this is bad because I work for the company, but I don't know if they have a slogan, but it says, "Together we rise, committed we fly" on the side as well. But
it's probably like the Anheuser-Busch and First Form collab
Could be.
motto or something
Could be.
like that would be
Yeah.
my guess. Yeah.
But yeah, these hats are because First Form and AB are partnering up for the energy drink, which is dropping soon. I did get some insider information on that, which is pretty cool, and it sounds freaking awesome. So can't wait for that to release. But yeah, these hats are dope. Had to grab a few extra for the boys.
Yeah, that was huge of you to do that. That thing is sick.
So anyway, as you mentioned, three out of our last 4 episodes were guest ones. So 152, 150, and 149.
Mm-hmm.
All guest episodes, all phenomenal. But the boys are back, just us, and we kind of have a combo between Forging Fortitude and Physical Vitality today for you guys, which is we're going to talk about the athlete complex and what that means. I think it's a very good thing to have, whether you are a current athlete or after. And we're not just going to sit here tonight. You know, we obviously talk about training like an athlete a lot and mindset of an athlete, which is kind of the direction we're going with this. But it's not necessarily this discussion or this conversation won't necessarily be based around the actual sports, but more how the athlete complex carries into other aspects of life.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, explaining what it is, you know, I think a good example a lot of people can think back to when it comes to, you know, sports when they're in their youth and then all the way up to high school, maybe those college athletes of you that are listening as well. A good explanation of the athlete complex is what it takes to become a really, really good athlete at that point in time. What the sports require, no matter the sport. I mean, you could pretty much name any sport, and it's going to take work to become an athlete. There are some sports that, you know, the athletes in it aren't exactly what you think of as athletes.
Sure.
But they're definitely still athletes.
Like sumo wrestling.
Although, I mean, you see that video of the sumo wrestler with Micah Parsons.
Oh, I did.
I mean, that was
He
terrifying.
got worked. He got
worked.
But to your point, like those dudes are fat.
They're also like genetic beasts as
of
well.
course.
I mean, I'm sure they do training, of course. Like there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So they're athletes in that department.
Right.
Obviously, if you ask them to run a 400 meter in a track event, that's not going to go so well, of course.
Right.
But that's not the point here. But it's interesting because the thing about the athlete complex, I look back to when I was an athlete, and one of the things I never understood about the athlete complex was nutrition and how that's one piece of the athlete complex.
It's a very important
and how,
one too.
Especially somebody that was growing as fast as I was, and how I'm a larger than average human, I should have been eating way more calories.
Way more.
My parents were feeding Mitch and I great. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt. But I should have been adding probably 1,000 to 1,500 extra calories on top of that.
Sure.
If I wanted to really perfect what I was doing, because I was growing so fast at the time. My 7th grade year, I grew 10 inches. You know, so it's one of those things where I didn't have the nutrition to support that, and that's not my parents' fault. They obviously have no degree in exercise science or anything like that. That's not their fault. But the point of the matter is like that's why we do stuff like this. So we can educate young athletes that maybe their parents don't know about that.
Yeah.
Nutrition is just one piece of it. The other piece that I know I didn't have because I got to college and things got hard, and that's when I stopped playing hockey, is because I just didn't realize like it took that little extra effort. Going up a little bit early to practice, whatever it was, staying after a little bit after practice, talking to the coaches, making a relationship with them, whatnot, talking to them face to face and telling them my grievances if I had any or whatever it was. You know, so because before then, my height had kind of carried me through the sport before that point in time. And don't get me wrong, I'd worked harder than other athletes had, but there's also plenty of athletes that had worked way harder than I had. And that's why they went D1 or plus or something like that, because I didn't put all the effort in. So that's a good example of like that hard work, nutrition, just details in general is what you think of with an athlete complex. At least I would say so. I don't know what you think.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, it's, you know, the physical stuff is great. I think where I lacked was the actual training aspect, and nutrition. Sure. You know, I certainly could have been better on that. I mean, I started gaining weight while I was still playing baseball in college, you know, and so obviously we know where that led to a really wonderful place that was. Yeah. Mitch can relate to that one, but so obviously there were things in the nutrition aspect that I lacked as well, but I didn't take training as far as like the gym and stuff. I didn't take that serious. You know, I was in the gym, I was doing the workouts, but I think I found it hard to conceptualize why that was so important and why that would translate to the field for me. Again, talking baseball here, but so yes, I was in there. I was never skipping workouts with the team. I wasn't late to workouts. I actually probably was BSing some during the workouts and things like that. But it's because I didn't fully understand the purpose of it yet, you know? And some of that's on me, and let's be honest here, some of that's on coaches too.
There is an aspect of that as well. 100%.
You have to have. We've talked about this before, but you got to have good coaches in your life and in your athletic career that are going to make you understand the why behind these things. Whether it's a specific drill for your sport, whether it's the gym, whether it's nutrition, whether it's sleep. If you're in college, whether it's grades, things like that. Like good coaches make players and athletes understand the why.
Yes.
Because when you understand the why, you buy in. And when you buy in, that's what you're talking about. You worked hard, but there were plenty of guys that worked harder than you.
Absolutely.
And so when it's because those guys understood the why is what I would say.
I think the coach point is so good, though, because the thing about coaches is that if you do have a good coach, it can add, like, let's say there are like that 10 athletes that are a part of an organization that all they need is that coach to push them that little extra direction. And that, in reality, I mean, you get a good coach, all of a sudden those athletes make bigger strides and go play college sports
100%.
and whatnot.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because those athletes might be right on the edge of things, and they're like, they just haven't heard it from their parents. They haven't heard it from anybody or any role models. The minute they get a role model and a coach, things take off.
Sure.
And
sometimes, too, that can be a guy on your team. Maybe you're a freshman in college and you latch on to a junior or senior, a guy that's been there for a few years with those coaches in this program at this school or whatever. You latch on to one of those guys, that can also put you in a really good spot.
Absolutely.
I had some great teammates at Mac. I really did. And I love those guys. And I wish, and we've talked about this, but like, obviously there's things I wish I would have done differently. I wish I would have stayed. I wish this, I wish that. Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Sure.
Move on from it. Okay, I get that. But I don't want that to go unnoticed. Like, I did have some great teammates that did try to pull me along with them. And there were times where I did, but I still didn't take it as serious as what I could have, and it sucks to look back because in high school, I was working hard. I was always hitting with my dad or playing catch with my dad or, whatever. And there were even times where my dad was trying to get me to do more and more, and so to have a supportive parent like that obviously is incredible. Both my parents were incredibly supportive. That sounded wrong. That's not how I meant that. Just putting that out in the universe there. But I don't know. It's just important to have good people around you. It really is. Everyone that we have had on this podcast, we have asked them, what's the best thing you can do for blank? What do they always say? They talk about relationship building. They talk about the people in their lives. They talk about mentors. Any aspect of the world, that's what matters. It's very cliche, but you can't do things alone. You just can't. Whether it's golf, where it's a solo sport, you still have to rely on your caddy. You still are relying on the coaches you have, whatever it is. You have to have good people. You really do. And, that kind of transitions why the athlete complex is so beneficial to the rest of life. Because a lot of times you do see former athletes, especially on the professional side, become really solid, businessmen. Not all of them, because there's plenty of athletes that turn out very poorly after sports. They find drugs or they find the party scene or Vegas or whatever, and they go down a hole. We've heard many stories like that.
Because they lose that identity that was only the athlete.
100%. Yeah. Let's take a guy like Matt, for example, because we've had him on. Here's a guy, he was trying to get back in the big leagues and he was working his ass off and it was awesome to watch, and it just didn't quite happen for him. He could have easily been at home right now and sulking about that.
Just playing video games 8 hours a day.
Yeah, or whatever. Just doing nothing with his life because he's no longer a professional baseball player. No. What did he do immediately? He's immediately sending out applications and more resumes. I shouldn't say applications, but resumes and letters and stuff to big league organizations like, hey, I want to coach. Here's what I can offer. Here's who I am, which I got to assume most organizations know who he is.
I would say so.
But still, you still gotta represent yourself well, and vouch for yourself. And what's he doing now? He's at spring training right now.
Lo and behold.
Exactly. So it obviously translated to him because that complex of work hard, get results. It didn't quite work anymore for the playing career, but now he's able to do it in the coaching side of things. So we see it so many times where these guys stop playing their sport and they're successful in business. Look at Michael Jordan. Are you kidding me? He literally has probably the most recognizable brand in the world, other than maybe literal Nike. Obviously it's the same company. I get that. But yeah, that Jordan logo, first of all, it's in all sports now. all sports have it, whether it's baseball, football. I'm sure hockey in
has
some way
of
has
too.
it.
Yep.
It's even on NASCAR cars now, like, and so, but look at that. That's a great example. Obviously, that's the extreme, but plenty of other guys get involved in business in some way. It might be real estate. It might be continuing on with their sport in a way, the shoes or the coaching or whatever. So that drive, that, again, back to the guys that you said, you worked hard, but there were guys that worked harder, right? Those guys that worked harder, they understood what it took to get to that next level, even beyond college, as far as the sports go. So they're going to understand what it takes to still be successful after the sport. Whatever route that is for you, some guys go back to school, and do something else. But they understand the effort and the work that it takes to go a certain direction and reach a certain level.
Yeah. And what you're talking about in real life too, when it comes to, somebody, they might get a mentor or a coach and then they still fail, so to speak, or not do well. That's also, I think, it's the same concept as in Christianity. God just doesn't meet you 100% of the way. He meets you. That's hilarious. We're just had a little bit of an accident over here, ladies and gentlemen.
Forgot how to drink water there.
Yeah. But God meets you 50% of the way, halfway. And you have to then meet him halfway as well. It's the same thing with a mentor. You have to meet them halfway. In the past, when it comes to training, I have not met mentors halfway. They've tried to give me that. I have not met mentors halfway. And lo and behold, I didn't grow as fast because of those mistakes or whatever it was.
Sure.
Or you think back to. So it's the same thing as like, if you carry over, okay, I look back to, I had this one coach when I was playing baseball, and he really pulled me along to that extra level, but I know I didn't go to that extra level because I didn't meet him there.
Yeah.
Now what I'm going to do is, now with my accounting boss or whatever, the accounting manager, and I'm an accountant under him, he is pulling me along, and I'm going to meet him halfway, and then do that extra work it takes to succeed in this accounting career or whatever. Sure. That's just one example, of course. And same thing for us. If we didn't meet somebody like Jeff or John or Matt halfway, we're not learning from them at that point in time.
No, correct.
They might try to reach their hand out, but then if we don't even attempt to grab their hand at all or put in any effort on our end of things, we're not going to grow as trainers.
Right. And you might be throwing the one opportunity you have to grab that hand.
Exactly.
Of whoever that is for you guys.
Because then their hand has to go somewhere else. They can't just leave their hand hanging there for years on end, for example, in this hypothetical scenario.
Of course.
They can't just leave it there, because otherwise that'll drag them down too.
Exactly. And those types of people, they're not just going to leave their hand out there. They're smart enough, and they're in the positions they are in because they don't waste their own time. We actually kind of talked about this with John in episode 152, where sometimes you got to fire a client. Again, a little bit different context than what we're talking about here, slightly, but also a lot of similarities. If someone's not meeting us on the programming that we build for them, like, that takes time. It takes time to do that. I know you guys probably just think it's just plug and play, like, push-ups.
Yep.
3 by 8.
Especially for the personalized aspect of it.
100%.
If we're talking like those you guys that are monthly, that's a different story.
For
You're
sure.
like getting program workouts that have worked for, tens of other people, for example, and whatnot, that we've either tested it with or used ourselves or whatever it is. But if it's a personalized programming, we're intaking your information that 100%. You're right.
Exactly.
It takes effort on our end to program a proper program. Now, again, it's not like we're doing rocket science or something like that, of course, but it's not easy also.
Of course, yeah, because everyone's different.
Exactly.
But back to talking about those, the mentor type thing, it's like, they're smart enough that they're not going to just waste their own time and leave that hand out there.
They can't.
So if you get the opportunity to grab that hand, do it. Do it.
Yep.
Good things are going to happen.
And then you got to put in the effort.
Exactly.
Yeah, because if you don't show up, it's not going to happen. And again, like I said, I've made that mistake in the past.
Everyone
I
has.
have not met somebody in the middle, and it has negatively impacted me. Now, that doesn't mean obviously we're here now.
Right.
So like, it hasn't completely screwed me over.
Of course.
Obviously.
Of course.
But does that mean I don't have a lot of mistakes I can learn from? 100%.
Sure.
I absolutely do. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
So it's as simple as not falling down your own rabbit hole and sabotaging yourself, because I think a lot of the times athletes, we tend to sabotage ourselves. If we, for example, like, we sabotage ourselves by not putting that hand out, but also just getting in our own heads. It's like, oh, I made, for example, hockey, there's like 5 plays a game at least as a defenseman, especially, where there's plays you mess up.
Yeah.
And then if you let that get in your head and it's all you think about, your game is ruined.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as if you go into work and it's like you had one bad day or one bad week, and then next thing you know, you're a useless employee the rest of the time you're there.
Mm-hmm.
That's self-sabotage.
Sure.
So there's also bad habits you can carry over from it that are not of the athlete complex we're talking about right now.
Correct.
And the reason we talk about this, guys, is because, again, we went through it.
Yeah.
We're not pulling this out of thin air and saying that we've never made these mistakes, so don't make these ones.
Right.
It's like, no, we've made these mistakes,
right.
So don't do that. Take that athlete complex and build from it from here on out.
And listen to why we're saying don't do that too. You know? So since we're on a little bit of a time crunch tonight for you guys, sorry. Before we go, let's talk about how to cultivate this if you are not an athlete or you never were an athlete. You know, how do people get to that, do you think?
You know, it's an interesting question because of that's why I think we've recommended before that, like, at least at some point in time, people should play sports at least once.
For sure, but
100%.
let's say in the scenario,
they never have, you know. Those people might have done theater or band or something like that as well. In a way, that's competition too.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, at 100% that's competition. If you're sitting down and you have to go head to head with another saxophone player, for example, you can cultivate that same way. But what I would probably recommend is I would say anybody can be either successful in a career or entrepreneurship. One of the two. Obviously, entrepreneurship's a lower percentage. I mean,
sure.
At least from statistics, much lower percentage of people that do entrepreneurship and then are successful. But I would say that would be the way to do it, is that you would push it into a career or your own. Like, let's say you're really, really skilled in biology in school, or some, you know, whatever subject in school, like cybersecurity with Mitchell and whatnot. Now, Mitchell is also an athlete, but Mitchell can pour himself into cybersecurity and use that as his athlete complex now. Instead of him being an athlete, he is a cybersecurity specialist, or whatever you want to call him. At that point in time, that's what he pours himself into. Same with accounting, finance, or entrepreneurship. If you pour yourself into that, you're going to have to make a lot more mistakes, I would say.
Yeah.
That would be my argument about it. If you're going to cultivate it as a non-athlete, you're probably going to have to make those mistakes either earlier on or just a lot of them in a row.
Yeah.
Honestly,
sure.
Because you won't know, oh my gosh, like I guess I didn't put enough hard work here. Like, you had no idea because you hadn't done it when you were an athlete and whatnot. So you have no clue. So you have to make the mistakes is really what it is.
You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And we in different ways, not necessarily that exact sentence, but you and I say that to ourselves and to each other all the time, all the time. And, we have a pretty good idea of how to program and stuff like that. That's what we do. We've both done it for many years. However, it's not like we don't listen to other coaches when they talk about better ways to program or why they program in a certain way. It's like if we didn't listen to those guys who are ahead of us in the entrepreneurial journey or just ahead of us in the coaching game or the
15,
training game,
20 years in,
whatever
it is. Yeah.
We would be foolish,
Foolish.
Especially because the types of guys that we do look up to and we do have contact with, excuse me, we have contact with, we know personally, we could call them and they would answer, that type of thing. Like, if we didn't use that, we would be the dumbest guys on the planet. I mean,
100%.
We really would. And because those guys are incredible humans, they're always willing to help. So
that's interesting.
Hopefully we still have power. Okay.
Good.
Good.
So we're running on all the cameras still too.
It's
kind of cool.
We just lost power for a second, guys. So if you heard a beep, that's why.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry to refocus here. I think a way to cultivate this as a non-athlete, or someone that wasn't an athlete, I should say, is creating competition within yourself. Okay. And what does that mean? Well, it's figuring out a way to be better at your job, at your company, if you're an entrepreneur, or an entrepreneur for that matter. It's competing with yourself. Okay, I did this last week, or I did this yesterday. What more can I do to progress that? What more can I do? What more can I do? What more can I do? It's that way, because everyone wants to make more money. Everyone wants to have more freedom. Everyone wants to have maybe more control as far as like being in a leadership position, things like that. Maybe not control, but everyone wants to lead. Maybe I should rephrase that, because maybe not everyone wants to lead, actually. But the first two for sure remain.
Men should have some kind of leadership.
Well, sure.
There's no doubt about that.
For sure. But everyone wants more money and wants more freedom. I think anyone would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who says otherwise, Okay.
There are some people that would say they just want more government handouts
Oh, boy.
or basic
Well,
income from
I
the
have a
government.
feeling those people aren't listening to this podcast. Because
I hope
strictly
so.
because we have the flag hanging
I'll be
behind
honest,
us.
that's what John said. That's not our target demographic.
For sure.
So like, I have no time for that. So
For sure. But I think it's just cultivating that competition within yourself. You can also, and it doesn't have to be outward competition, but you can also compete with people within your own company or your department even.
Mhm.
You can make it much smaller. In a way, I do that at work.
Mhm.
It's like, I want to be the best one on our team. And I believe that I am. But if I stopped there, then I'm a loser. Maybe I do think I'm one of our better players. That doesn't mean I stop progressing myself in something as minuscule, or not minuscule, as something like what I do. There's still plenty of ways to get that. So try to beat the next person.
Mhm.
Again, it doesn't have to be outward competition. Like, yo, hey, Gabel, I'm gonna beat you today.
Yeah.
Like being an ass about it.
Mm.
You can have playful like that, but actually mean it if you want. But it's competing within yourself, and you can also do it in a way where you're competing with other people, because that's how you can show yourself becoming better and becoming more worthy of more money, more freedom, whatever else you desire.
I think that's a good ending point too, because what you're talking about is you're not just only competing with yourself. 100%. If you're an entrepreneur and you're in a company and there's 5 other people that are doing the same thing you are trying to do a better job than they are. There's just no doubt about it.
Right.
Like that is the goal 100% of the time. It's the same thing as when I post my educational reels for fitness. I'm trying to post better educational reels than other fitness content creators.
Right.
100%. It's not just that, I want to be better than myself last week, which is part of it.
Sure.
But 100% competition's a thing. And I think a lot of people talk about, comparisons the thief of joy. It's like, well, comparison can be useful too.
Sure.
You're going to be very useful to look at somebody and be like, I can take some tips from that.
Right.
I can expand my knowledge. I can expand my skill set through that.
It's funny on that note real quick. Andy is the only one I've ever heard talk against that quote.
Yep.
Comparison is the thief of joy. He's the only one. And when he talks about it, it makes so much sense.
Makes total sense.
It really does.
Yeah.
And it basically, he talks about it in a way you just said, but it is not the thief of joy. It can be extremely like propelling, I guess would be a word. Yeah, and you and I do that, whether with our own content or with what we're trying to do with the podcast, or what we are doing with the podcast, what we are doing with our business and things like that. We do that.
Mhm.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
There can be negative comparison aspects too, to where like if a girl is obsessing over comparing herself to how other girls look and stuff like that, for example,
Of course.
that's gonna
bad.
be bad for sure.
Sure.
Yeah. Like, so we're not talking about that. I'm talking about competing and being better in business than somebody else.
Right.
Or
Basically,
being better in sports than somebody
Yes.
else. Or a useful thing to be competing in.
in an inspiration type of way.
Exactly.
Like I want to be like that guy, but I want to be even better.
Mhm.
He's made it to that point. And that's awesome. And like, I'm trying to get to that. I'm trying to walk in those footsteps, but then I'm also trying to pass his footsteps and make my own.
Right.
Yeah. So
I like it, dude.
guys, so normally we would do a Q&A question submitted by you guys, the listeners or the viewers. But again, we are on a little bit of a time crunch. We have an event to get to. So there are a few different ways we would like you to submit these Q&A questions to us. Number 1, you can DM them to us on Instagram at untapped.llp. That is our most preferred method. It's where we see the most. You can also DM them to us individually. You can also text them to us individually if you have our numbers. You can email them to us. Our email is extricationfitness@gmail.com. So it's under our old name. I know it's a mouthful, which is exactly why we changed the name to Untapped, because it's way easier to say and way easier to spell, by the way. That's something I never mentioned. We're not very good at spelling. It gets ugly sometimes when we're trying to spell things.
It's because we're 75 IQ.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Yep.
But
that's why we can run a business and do a job still and all that stuff. Yeah. Yep.
So you can email them to us. There's an email button in our Instagram and our Facebook bios. You can just click on it. It'll take you right to an email. So you can send them in that way. You can also leave them in the comments of our Instagram, TikTok, X, or Twitter. I still call it Twitter. It's Twitter. But.
Yeah, it literally, have you seen when it shows up? It says X, formerly known as Twitter.
Yes.
It's like, okay, what are we doing here?
But
anyways,
Instagram, TikTok, X, or YouTube, you can leave them in the comments on any of those platforms. Okay, we are on all 4 of those. All the podcast episodes are on YouTube, along with our vlogs, which, by the way, when you guys are hearing this, last Thursday, our newest vlog released. I don't even know what number it is. It doesn't matter. But we go out to the brand new Fit City gym in St. Charles, Cottleville area. It is so sick. I mean, that gym was freaking awesome.
Filthy.
So, guys, make sure you go check out our newest vlog. Again, that's on YouTube. But again, to reiterate, you can leave your questions in the comments on any of those platforms. All of the questions then get sent to Money Mitch. He will pick one out that pertains to the episode that we're talking about. It can pertain to a past episode, a future episode, or sometimes it can just be a random question. It can be funny, whatever. Ask your questions, submit them. We get them over to him. He picks them out. And then we go through them.
Boom.
Guys, that is episode 153. Until next time, peace and love.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.